What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to break down the halo. It's one of the most common movements that I teach. Quick breakdown of what it's doing. It's great for shoulder mobility. We'll say there's a shoulder strength component in there, but really the main thing this is a core stabilizing drill. You're going to be moving the bell around your head, and the idea is that you're using your core muscles to brace your trunk so that there's no movement in your spine. So I'm going to run clip, and then we'll kind of break it down. Okay, so let's just start from the view from the front. So basically, the easiest way to think about this is if I were to just draw a line down the middle of me as I am doing this, you shouldn't see my chest swaying side to side. See a little bit, maybe I need to work on that, but pretty much for the most part I'm staying nice and squared up. The idea is obviously when the bell is on this side, my body's going to try to shift the opposite way. So by not doing that, I am, we'll just say, strengthening my core, but the main thing is I'm actually getting my core to be much more efficient at understanding how to counter and how to counter twist, counter rotate, things like that. And again, as I finish, I'm pretty much squared right up along that line. So I'm going to kind of fast forward it a little bit, show you what this is going to look like from the side. Notice when I'm picking this thing up off the ground, this is something I see a lot. I see a lot of droopy backs. I really want your back to be nice and straight. So I'm doing a little hip hinge to even get the bell up off the ground, keeping my chest open, my back muscles engaged. From here, I'm going to stand up, do a little bicep curl to get into starting positions. Let's just talk about the starting position. I call these the 90s. So I'm just going to draw a few boxes so you can actually see 90-degree angles. We'll say more or less 90-degree angles. Pretty much right here, every part of me is at 90 degrees. So kind of get rid of the boxes. It makes it a little bit easier. Let's just call that 90. Let's call that 90. Let's call that 90. I'll show you what this looks like when I let my core disengage. But from the side, same thing. I want to make sure that I'm not swaying forward and backwards. So if I draw a line here, I plant, and as I begin to, we'll just say, orbit the bell around my head, I really don't want my body doing much movement. As far as how far back or how far down do you go, when I bring the bell around my head, the way I like to imagine it is if I was wearing a backwards baseball cap, I'm going to sort of bring the bell so it skims right across the brim. When I come to the middle, I'm going to pause, make sure that I haven't lost my core tension. And then, here we go. So I'm going to go into the bad reps in a second. So really simple. That is the halo. Rep scheme will just depend on what you're trying to do for that day. I should note that I'm doing this out of the lunge position, or I'll call this the half kneeling position. You can do a halo, and I'll show you what it looks like when you do it on both knees down. You can do halos standing. There's even some advanced versions where you can do it on one leg, but this is the way that I generally teach it at first. So if I'm doing, let's say, 3 halos per side with my right leg forward, I would also do it with my left leg forward just to stay balanced. So let's go and break down what the halo should not look like. So I'm going to go ahead and put my center line back. This is what happens when I just let my core disengage. Very, very common. Watch my chest. So if my chest, let's just say my chest is staying nice and level, the second I bring my bell up, I'm just going to let my chest just pick up. So I'm kind of like letting my rib cage lift up, and you can actually see my back is curving now. This is super common. It's probably the biggest no-no I see with the halo. And it's easy to avoid. The main thing is just make sure you're moving slow and make sure that as you move, I like to think of it this way. If somebody was going to start punching me in my stomach, I'm staying braced. I'm not sucking in, but I'm staying braced so that when I lift my bell up, I don't need to worry about arching backwards. This is the next common error I see. Pretty easy to point this one out. rather than me bringing the bell around my head, if you have shoulder mobility issues or if you're just not focusing on what you're doing, generally what people will do is they will do this, and they'll just move their head out of the way of the bell. So you can see that my elbows haven't really gone very far backwards. This is an easy fix. Just imagine that your head is the sun, the bell is the earth, earth orbits the sun. If you are lacking shoulder mobility, really simple, rather than bringing, we'll just say rather than your halo, that's not what I want, let's try that again. Rather than your halo, we'll just say kind of circling about ear height, I'm just going to circle it more above my head, and that way I don't need to worry about moving my head out of the way. But basically, adjust your bell around your head, not the other way around. I'm going to show you what this looks like if I do it from a different position. Nothing will change here. Both knees are down, I'm keeping my butt nice and tight. Same thing. Halo, halo, and then when I'm done, save, set down. So that's a quick, well, maybe not quick, but that's a decent little breakdown of what the halo is. This is an excellent drill, and this is something I start most people on because not only is this great for shoulder mobility, but like I said, this is a really, really excellent way to make sure that, again, I'll use the word core generically, but to make sure your core is activated. If you're doing these things and you're wobbling all over the place, I mean, it could be that you're using too heavy of a bell, it could be that you need to work on balance, but really this is going to really be an efficient way to, we'll just say, sync your brain and your core muscles up and get them all engaged, especially if you're moving on to a more advanced lift. Okay, hope this helps out.